There is a river that meanders through the Kushiro region before emptying into the sea. Spreading forth around this river are several marshes. There is the Kiritapu Marsh in Hamanaka town and the Bekambeushi Marsh in Akeshi town. And in the Kushiro River basin that flows from Lake Kushiro in Teshikaga town, there is Japan's largest wetland, the vast Kushiro Marsh that covers parts of Shibecha town, Tsurui village, Kushiro town, and Kushiro city. This marsh has a rich ecosystem and is home to a wide variety of wild birds, mammals, and fish, as well as trees and wetland plants. The Kushiro Marsh was once called a barren and useless land, but today it attracts countless tourists both in and out of Japan. Looking back at its history, the marsh was long regarded as a bane rather than a blessing. The vast, endless wetland impeded the work of the settlers, and its nutrient-poor soil was unsuitable for growing crops. The cold summer climate and frequent advection of sea fog were also a burden. Yet despite all these challenges and many desperate situations, the region has developed into what it is today, thanks to the unwavering people who worked hand in hand as they devoted their lives to a struggle against the odds. Coal has been mined in the Kushiro region since its early days. Kushiro City was even called a coal mining town. In fact, the presence of coal in the area has a deep connection to the Kushiro Marsh. The marsh was formed through the accumulation of peat, which forms from the decay of plant matter in waterlogged conditions. Subjected to pressure over long periods of time, the peat eventually turned into coal. The Kushiro coal field extends over a wide area, mainly within the Kushiro sub-prefecture and its offshore area. It was first mined in 1856, the first coal field to be mined in Hokkaido. Though mining stopped shortly after, it resumed in the 1870s and continues to this day, with the field having one of the largest coal deposits in Japan. During its peak in the late 1970s, it was producing 2.61 million tons of coal a year. This coal was transported to all of Hokkaido and the rest of Japan, and it supplied a significant part of the country's energy needs, being used for everything from home heating to fuel for thermal power and locomotives. In addition to coal, sulfur mining was also conducted in earnest from 1887 at Mount Atosanupuri in Teshikaga town. This mountain is more commonly known as Iozan, or Sulphur Mountain. Due to the high demand for sulfur to make fertilizer and matchsticks, a railway was opened from the mine. It was called the Kushiro Railway. In order to run the trains and smelt the sulfur ore, coal was used as fuel. And in order to haul the processed sulfur from inland factories to Kushiro, the Kushiro River was engineered to allow shipping vessels to pass. A network of steamboats and locomotives was then established around the Kushiro port that opened in 1899 to transport the coal and sulfur nationwide. Kushiro thus established itself as a transport hub that connected both land and water routes. Such is how coal played an important role in the development of Kushiro. Coal had become an indispensable part of people's lives. But as Japan entered its post-war economic boom, oil gradually replaced coal as the main energy source in Japan. Imports of cheap foreign oil led to a decrease in coal production. The decline of the domestic coal industry had begun. Takaori Ishikawa, curator of the Kushiro City Museum and a scholar of the local coal industry, gives his take on this development.
やはりこの町に炭鉱があるっていうのはやっぱり意味があるというか、それだけ努力をしてきたからだと思います。 やはりここの場所のこの炭鉱にこう仕事の人生をかけていいんだろうという気持ちになるためにはですね、安全を重視する、生産することより石炭を掘ることよりも安全保安、こちらを大事にするっていう精神がですね、この炭鉱ではもう息づいて、やっぱりそういったことはですね、炭鉱に限らず他の産業においても重要だと思いますし、学ぶべきものかなと思います。石炭についてはこれは有限産業、必ず掘れば終わってしまいます。なのでいつかは終わりが来るんだと思います。ただこの石炭が採掘始まってから日本の地域で160年以上経ちますけども、これで培われたそういった安全とか、仕事に対する考え方というのは今後も継続されていくべきだと思いますし、この地域に豊かな自然もありますけども、その豊かな自然にこう育まれたさまざまな文化というのはそういった仕事文化も含めたと思いますけども、今後いろいろな面でですね活用されていくのかなというふうに思います。
One of the industries that emerged out of the unique natural environment of the Kushiro region is the pulp and paper industry. The region was rich in forests, water, sulfur, and coal. These four elements are all indispensable in the manufacture of paper. The first pulp mill in the region opened in the early 1900s. From the 1920s, paper-making operations began in earnest. Trees for pulp making were felled from the Lake Akan coast, while water was drawn from the Kushiro and Akan rivers. Coal from the Kushiro coal field was used as fuel in the mills, and sulfur from Mount Atosanupuri was used to bleach the pulp. Papermaking thus became one of Kushiro's main industries. The region's fishing industry began further back in the past. In the early 1700s, a trading post called Kusuri Basho was established in the Kushiro coast. From the end of the century, the post was managed and developed for successive generations by the Magoemon family from Niigata. In 1870, Sano Magoemon invited settlers from the main island, leading to a boom in the fishing and kelp culture industry. Profits from the industry were used to build roads and medical facilities. With the advent of engine-powered fishing boats in the 1900s, the Kushiro fishing industry and its port expanded greatly. By the late 1960s, fishing had expanded to the waters around the Kamchatka Peninsula, leading to significantly higher catches. For 9 straight years from 1969, the Kushiro port had the highest catch volume in all of Japan. In 1987, the catch reached a record high of 1.33 million tons, a milestone in Kushiro's time at the top of Japan's fishing industry. But the current environment surrounding the fishing industry is a far cry from its heyday, with catch volumes falling to about 1/10 of its peak. Even catches for popular Kushiro specialties such as Pacific sauri, salmon, and squid have remained low in recent years. Tetsuo Kitajima, president of the Kushiro Fisheries Association, gives his recollection of the glory days of the past and the problems that arose from it.
もうそれはですね、昼夜区別なしって言ったいいくらいの状況だったんですね。当時はですね、2時間後3時間後っていう話には程遠くて、生の取った魚をいかに外部を送るか処理するかというそういう明け暮れだったんですよね。それからだんだん減っていって漁業者の数もいなくなったし、これは漁業者自体も自分たちを生きるために末のためにしかるべきトン数を守って、それから家族でやってる漁業が多いですね。後継者いないというと年取ってきますね。共同でねつないでいくというふうに考えた漁業をしていく必要があると、そういうふうに思うんですね。はい。
In contrast, there is a place that has long succeeded in branding itself for its marine products. The town of Akeshi, whose name is said to mean a place with many oysters in the Ainu language, is in fact rich in oysters thanks to its geography. Though overfishing in the mid-19th century led to a period of scarcity, preservation efforts and improved aquaculture techniques stabilized oyster stocks. In the 1870s, an oyster processing plant was also established, manufacturing products such as oyster sauce and soy sauce. Since then, Akechi has earned a reputation for being a town of delicious oysters. Though the coal mining, fishing, and paper industries were able to firmly establish themselves, the agricultural industry faced a more difficult struggle. The biggest obstacle to developing farmlands was the Kushiro Marsh. The peat soil from the marsh had high water retention that made it unsuitable for upland farming. It also could not be easily converted to paddy fields, leading it to be called a barren and unproductive land. Furthermore, with the cool climate and frequent occurrence of sea fog, there was usually not enough warmth and sunlight for crops to grow properly. 60 years had passed since pioneering began, but the fact that there was still so much uncultivated land shows just how deficient the land was. These words were written in the memoirs of Eigo Nihei, a settler who moved to Hamanaka town from Fukushima Prefecture in 1924, and a man who played a leading role in modernizing the agriculture of Kushiro. A major turning point for Kushiro agriculture came in the 1930s, when Hokkaido was experiencing widespread crop failures. Many settlers gave up and returned to the Japanese mainland or drifted to foreign lands. But for Nihei and his colleagues, there was nowhere else to go. It came to a point where the government had no choice but to admit that upland farming was not suitable for the region. In 1932, after petition efforts from Nihei and his colleagues, they succeeded in bringing dairy cattle to the region using government subsidy. Many farmers worked together to build cattle sheds and set up milking facilities. As the number of cattle gradually increased, government support also became more generous. In 1933, the Hokkaido government rolled out the 5-year farming development plan for the Konsen Plain, which outlined a regional policy focused on dairy farming. This led to a more stable business outlook for dairy farms. Nihei gave the following recollection about their struggles. Whatever came our way, we had no choice but to stay here and survive. Strangely enough, when the odds are against you, you learn to become stronger and wiser. In his later years, he also wrote, "I find great joy in the fact that many visitors find Kushiro to be an enviable place to live in. It is a fitting reward for all of us who worked hard and pulled together. I believe that we can be very proud of what we have built here." Indeed, it was through the unwavering efforts of Nihei and his colleagues that the Kushiro region has become the dairy kingdom that it is today. In the development of the region and its industries, the Kushiro Marsh was in many cases considered to be an obstacle. In order to overcome this obstacle and push forward with development, the people leveraged the power of engineering. They channelized the meandering river and reclaimed parts of the marshland. Needless to say, this led to severe environmental destruction and rapid aridification of the marsh. In the village of Tsurui, various efforts are now being made to preserve the natural habitat of the red-crowned cranes in the Kushiro Marsh. Masahiro Wada, a photographer and nature guide who grew up in Tsurui, gives his take on the past development policy of the marsh.
で酪農を規模拡大するにはやはり装置面積を増やさなきゃならない。 じゃあ湿原の方まで、そういう牧草地を伸ばそうっていうことで、この鶴居村周辺の湿原っていうのは低層湿原、吉原で水がいつもジャブジャブあるエリアだったので、そこを名橋を掘って、乾燥するって言ってもなかなかそれはもう大変な作業で、数度の雨、台風とかによってその名橋が埋まったり、なかなか人間の思ったような形ではいかなかったわけですね。
The Kushiro Marsh plays a variety of important roles in the region. It serves as a rare habitat for diverse flora and fauna, including the Siberian salamander, the Tancho red-crowned crane, and the Japanese huchen, one of the largest freshwater fish in Japan. The marsh also acts as a large water reservoir. Though the soil's high water retention made it ill-suited for farming, it shows its true merits in times of flood.
その湿原っていうのは泥炭層っていう水を含みやすい地層、また苔でできてますから、大雨が降ると一旦その水を受け止める作用がある。で雨が降らなくなると少しずつ放出するっていう、天然のダムの役目を果たしているっていうふうに言われてますね。ですから釧路湿原が当時の開墾の時に牧草地に全部転換していたら、もう大変な水害が起きていただろうっていうふうに言われてますね。もちろんタンチョウもそういうことしていれば多分絶滅の方に行ってたと思いますね。
In the 1970s, there was much discussion about what to do with the Kushiro Marsh. It was eventually decided that the surrounding areas were to be developed, while the central area was to be preserved. In 1980, the central area was designated as Japan's first Ramsar site. Subsequently, the marsh was designated as a national park in 1987, the first entirely wetland area to be given the designation. The Kushiro Marsh offers countless benefits to the people of the region, and the people now realize that excessive development poses the danger of undoing those benefits. Through the unified efforts of the residents, related organizations, and the government, the region now strives to protect and restore the nature of the marsh.
そうですね、僕はあれもう生まれ育ちもここですので、湿原の良さとか湿原の怖さっていうのはもう本当によく知ってるつもりでいます。うまく人間もこの釧路湿原のこの自然を利用して、ある程度経済効果を生む。でその中でその重要な部分をしっかり残して、保護して、でお互いうまく自然と人間が共存共生できるような形で持っていければいいなと思っています。
Coal mining, fishing, paper manufacturing, and dairy farming. These four industries that have shaped the Kushiro region are all facing a quagmire. Their common predicament is one of declining demand. Coal has long been replaced by oil as the main energy source in Japan, while domestic consumption of seafood and dairy has dropped, and digitalization is gradually eliminating the need for paper. The region may now be facing its greatest crisis yet. But for over 200 years, the people of the Kushiro region have nurtured an ability to rise up to challenges. They have already begun various initiatives that give hope for the region's future. Despite scaling down its operations, the Kushiro coal mine continues to operate in Kushiro City to this day and is the last remaining coal mine in Japan. The coal is currently being supplied to the new Kushiro thermal power plant that began operations in 2020.
もう釧路で全部完結させたいってことですよね。石炭の灰、CO2、あとは水、環境すべて燃料の地産地消ってうちしかできないんで、どの会社もできないんで、それは一つの大きな試みだと思いますね。
The future of the fishing industry is not so bright. The depletion of marine resources believed to be caused by climate change is taking a toll on the region's fishermen. But there are some people who are aiming to produce high added value seafood products in order to help replenish stocks while earning a stable income. By introducing new fishing methods and original processing techniques, these young innovators from the Kushiro Eastern Fisheries Cooperative Association are helping fishermen add value to their products and distribute them to the market at higher prices. For items with quantities not suitable for wide distribution, they regularly conduct direct sales to local consumers.
今この3年4年5年と努力して単価が上がってきてくれてるんで、今まで300キロ必要だったものが200キロあればとりあえず同じ単価には持っていけるから、そういった意味での育てる漁業っていうのにどんどん向かってはいきたいんですよね。消費者に行くものに関しての品質っていうのが自分では一番だと思ってるんで、そこのとこはもう手を抜かずずっと同じものを作れるような努力をしていくのが僕らの課題ですかね。
Kushiro is a world leader in technology for preserving freshly caught fish. The nitrogen ice developed by a Kushiro company keeps perishables fresh longer than regular ice does, allowing for longer transport times. Other new technologies that can support the fishing industry are also in development. In order to promote the consumption of dairy products, the Shibecha Agricultural Cooperative Association has launched a public relations campaign with the slogan, "Enjoy eating milk." They also aim to convey the merits of local Shibecha milk by featuring it on milk cartons and ice cream packs. Project planner Fumitaka Murakami explains the significance of the initiative.
第一次産業の生産者ってやっぱり国民のその食料を供給してるっていう根底があって、プライドを持ってやってますよね。それが形にならないと仕事をしている農業をしている意味合いって薄くなっていく。逆にそういう製品があればやりがいっていうのはさらに膨らむ。だから標茶町の行政の人も農協の職員もそこは同じ、農家さんと同じ気持ち、それが意義でしょうね。
The Shibecha Agricultural Cooperative Association is also planning to open a new facility that combines the functions of a dairy processing plant, a local product shop, and a tourist attraction. The people of the region have also discovered a new pillar that can support their livelihoods: tourism. Whether it's the marsh that was once considered a bane, the cool summers and frequent sea fog, or the freezing cold winters, every aspect of the region can be an important tourism resource. Known for its world-class biodiversity, the Kushiro Marsh is a great place for a special kind of canoe tour. And with summer temperature highs hovering around 20 degrees Celsius, Kushiro City has become a well-established summer retreat. In fact, the city boasts the highest number of long-stay visitors among all Hokkaido municipalities.
今市としてはその観光をですね、リーディング産業にしようというような取り組みを進めているんですけれども、釧路に来た旅行者はホテルに泊まります。その方は単純にホテルに泊まるだけではなくて、地域で飲食をしたりバスに乗ったりっていうことで、バス事業者や飲食店に対しての経済的な効果っていうのもありますし、そういった意味でも観光っていうのは非常に大事な産業で、今後もしっかりと取り組んでいかなきゃならないなっていうふうに考えています。
Around the year 1945, an area near Kushiro Station became a place for merchants selling wares stacked on carts. This place is now the famous Washo Market, known as the Kitchen of Kushiro, and one of the 3 big markets of Hokkaido. Lined with shops selling fresh fish, crabs, and many other products, it is a place to experience the rich variety and high quality of Kushiro's marine bounty. One item that has become a Kushiro specialty is the kate don, a seafood rice bowl that you make on your own by going around the different shops and choosing your own toppings. Kate don has helped make the market a popular spot for locals and tourists alike.
魚っていうのは近年量も減ってきて貴重なものになってきてるんで、そこは逆手にとって貴重なものをきちんと扱ってる、そういう業種を集めた市場だ。地元の方に愛される市場、そして日本中の方に愛される市場、愛される釧路、そういう位置づけとして観光の資源と食べ物とかそういうものもなんか生かす、そういう動きがどんどん盛んになれば釧路もまだまだやっていけるなと思います。
Taking notice of the unique charms of the region, a group of young trendsetters have begun efforts to share them with the world.
今たくさん釧路に観光客の方すごく年々増えてると思うんですけれども、釧路のことがちょっと気になってるけどいまいち魅力がわからないみたいなことで躊躇してる方にも面白さが伝わっていればいいなということを目指して頑張っています。
The road to the future of the Kushiro region is by no means a smooth ride. But this road was built by people who confronted the harsh conditions of the land, tried to subjugate its nature, before eventually pursuing a path of coexistence. The road will likely lead to a future that preserves both the region's nature and the life of the people who call it home.